There we go. Okay, so, oops. That's not what I clicked on. Of course, what I clicked on doesn't want to work. Perfect. Guess my computer had too long of a break too. Okay. All right, so today what we're going to look at, I mentioned there's going to be 3 big properties that we're going to look at this week. We have 3 days this week, 3 big properties. Now, to introduce each property, though, I don't just want to stand up here and tell you, hey guys, here's how we do this. I do have a little activity for each one, but before we dig into that, I just want to make sure that we all have some common language when it comes to the different parts when we're dealing with something written in an exponential form. So if you take a look up at the top, I have a big old x to the 3rd there. The x part of that, does anybody know what the x part is called? Just the x, that bigger number, bigger variable we write.
Exponent.
The exponent's going to be the little piece. What's the big piece? Anybody know? John, do you know? The what? That's a variable. Yep, x is a variable. But what do we call it when it's written with an exponent? Anybody know that one? I'm glad we're doing this today. That is called the base. That is referred to as the base. That little number, the little 3 that's written, looks like it's floating around up in the air. That's the exponent. That's the exponent. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page, especially this next word that I'm going to use. Let me see if this will let me switch colors. I don't know, Word isn't happy today. There we go. Word isn't happy. It took too long of a break too, I guess. Now, if I have the whole thing together, though, oh, my color still didn't switch. The whole thing together, so if I'm putting the base and exponent together, that is referred to, this might be a new term for you, it's referred to as a power. So if you have a base and an exponent, you have something written in exponent form, that is referred to as a power.
You want them to write this down?
I would be putting this down. Yep, it's at the top of your sheet. You have, what's on your sheet is the same thing that's up on my screen. So the reason why I wanted to make sure we knew that terminology, part 1, our first law of exponents, we're going to be multiplying powers. Well, it doesn't make much sense to say we're multiplying powers if we don't know what a power is. So we've been working with powers ever since last class. Actually, the class before, we've been working with powers. So to discover that first law of exponents, let's take a look at the table, part A. It says fill in the table. I want to do the first row with you, and I want to give you a chance to fill out the rest of the table yourself, keeping up that practice with expanded form. So if we expand out, we have 10 to the 4th power. How many 10s am I going to have? Go ahead and just shout it out.
6.
Up 10 to the 4th power. Let's start there. We're going to have 4. And then we have a 10 to the 2nd power. So we're going to have another 2. So this is why last class we took the time to expand things out and make sure we understood what exponents meant. Because being able to expand it out is going to help us figure out our properties. So if we simplify it, aka our exponent form, we're going to have 10 to the what? 10 to the 6th power. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 10s. So take a couple minutes, guys. See if you can fill out the rest of that table. And then we'll talk about it. We'll check the table. And then we'll see if you can come up with our own little shortcut. How can we do it faster besides expanding? As I'm walking around, a lot of you have a lot of the table filled in. I'm going to go ahead and fill in that second row just so you can have that confidence to keep rolling with things. I'm going to go ahead and fill in that second row. So if you're feeling kind of shaky, go ahead and check your second row with mine. And then keep rolling. Go ahead and do that third row. The third and fourth rows, they're not any different. Just trying to see if you can use that expanded form, something you already know how to do, and help us figure out a nice little shortcut. 'Cause expanding out, that can get to be kind of tedious. Lots of third rows looking good. I'm going to go ahead and put that third row up there. Our third rows are looking good. Go ahead and check your third row with mine. And it looks like fourth row, guys. We're just kind of flying along. Those of you on your fourth row, if you put those parentheses around there, extra nice job on that. I guess I liked the 6 power on this when I did this activity, huh, guys, when I typed this up? Make sure, guys, on that last row, I want to keep bringing up those negative bases. On that last row, please make sure that you do have those parentheses around that -2. Remember, we saw that in the calculator last week. If I don't put the parentheses there and I try to simplify in my calculator, it's going to tell me it's a negative answer when it's really a positive answer. So make sure you have those parentheses there. So make sure you've got parentheses around your last one. Just around the -2, just like I have. Just around that -2 base. Awesome. So what I want you to do, don't shout it out, because I think some of you already caught on to the shortcut even after you just did the second row. Take a look at letter B. It says, as you look through the examples in the table, come up with a method to simplify the problem without having to write out that expanded form. So in other words, how can you get from the beginning problem to simplified form without all that expanding out stuff? Take a minute, write down what you think for letter B. Don't shout it out. I know some of you have already caught on to it. Don't shout it out. Write down what you think. What do you see? Let's talk about that shortcut. And as I walked around, some of you, boom, you had it right away. Some of you had it before we even finished the table up there. And others of you, once we started talking, you're like, well, yeah, Miss Golly, come on. All you do is what with the exponents? Add them together. So add exponents. Isn't that much simpler, guys, than having to write out all those 10s and all those 2s and all those x's? But here's the nice thing, though. Let's say we go to take a little quiz over this, and you blank out. You're like, oh, shoot. I got it when we did it in class. We did a lot of practice on it, and now I'm on a quiz, and I don't remember. Do I add these? Do I subtract them? What do I do? Guess what? All of you know how to expand. So if you're ever in doubt, you're on a quiz, you're on a test, you're like, oh, I don't remember the property, you can always expand it out, guys. The properties are nice little shortcuts to save you a ton of work. And you might be thinking, Miss Golly, that wasn't that bad. I can write out 6 2's. What's the big deal with that? Well, what if you come across something like letter C? Do you want to write out, what did you come up with, Colin? 600 2's? Yeah. So if we use our method, what's my base number going to be? It's going to be a 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this, guys, just so we see how we got that 600. It's going to be 2 to the 600. I don't want to write out 600 2's. Because usually I get students who are like, Miss Golly, why do we have to know the laws? I know how to expand out. Let's just move on. Well, what happens when our exponents are a little bit too big? Trying to write out 600 2's, that take you most of class. Okay? What I want you to do is just take a minute and look at the problem in letter D. It says, would your method work to simplify 2 to the 3rd times 3 to the 2nd? So our method, the method that I mean is, can we just add those exponents together and rock on? Don't shout it out. Take a minute, jot something down. Will it work? Can I just add those exponents and move on in life? So take a look at part D. I see lots of yeses and lots of no's as I walk around. It's almost 50-50 actually. So let's do this. Let's expand it and let's see what happens. That's what we did in our table. Let's expand it. Let's see what happens. So 2 to the third, I'd have 2 times 2 times 2. 3 to the second, I would have 3 times 3. Can I just write that as 2 to the 5th? No. Can I write it as 3 to the 5th? No, because they're not all 3's. So can I just add these exponents together and move on? Where do we get stuck? My people that said no, any one of my people that said no, you guys all had an awesome thought on this. Caden, you said no. Why'd you say no? Yes, the base numbers aren't the same. If the base numbers aren't the same, I can't smash those two things together because I don't have the same amount of 2's and 3's. So no, the base numbers are not the same. I'm going to say exactly what Caden said because that was perfect. If the base numbers aren't the same, take a look. We try to expand it out, and I can't put anything together. If I expand it out, I'm stuck with 2 to the third, and I'm stuck with 3 to the second. I can't put them together. I can't make it 2 to the 5th. I can't make it 3 to the 5th. I can't make it 6 to the 5th. Some people are trying to multiply some bases there. I can't. I'm stuck. So our rule says, letter E, in order for your method to work, so our shortcut, the powers you are simplifying must have the same base. And that's why when we started this little activity, guys, I made sure we talked about what is meant by base and what's meant by exponent. Base is going to be a word we use a lot when looking at our exponent properties. All right, so letter F, let's summarize this. When we're multiplying powers with the same base, we keep the base the same. So in multiplying powers with the same base, keep the base the same. And what were we going to do with those exponents? What were we doing with them, Sam? Adding them. So that's our rule. That's our rule, guys. Okay? Tomorrow when we come in, you're going to want this sheet handy. I'm going to get us some practice on using this property. Get some practice on this property. And we're going to start our second property. Because we started today with a little quiz and things. We won't have that. We won't start with a quiz tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll come in. And this sheet, we talked about resources today to get our brains warmed up if we needed it. This sheet's going to be a resource for you tomorrow as we start our practice. Okay? So tomorrow we'll start our practice. And then we'll start looking at our